It's time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to December already. We're at December. It seems like we just got finished with June or July last week, and now it's December. This is the Voice of Indie podcast, episode number 227, and I am your host, Beem Weeks, and with me is my co-host, Stephen Gies. Where are you at in the Arctic North, Stephen?
Yeah, it's surprisingly cold up here. I can't believe this. I think I'm in Indiana. I'm somewhere in the middle of the country next to a really big river, and if I look out the window, it's dark, so I can't see much of what's going on, but it's strange. I got in the car in Alabama and stepped out up here in Arctic blizzard, it felt like. I think it's 20 degrees out there, and the wind cut me in half. I had to pick up my pieces. It was crazy. So I don't own clothing for this kind of stuff anymore. I've been living in the South for 10 years now. I actually went out shopping this week, bought some jackets. Turned out they're not quite enough. So, but hey, we're having a good time.
I got my heavy winter coat out. So yeah, I got my heavy winter coat out. Broke that out a couple weeks ago because we've had some pretty good weather through most of November, but that last week of November it just dropped, and it's like, oh hey, we're in November in Michigan. This is where it's supposed to be. So and that wind, you're right. The wind today was, it just cut right through you.
Yeah,
right down to the bone.
No matter where in the world you are, no matter how hot or cold it is outside, we're always excited about the fact that we've got a Karlyle Tomms book out there. And not too long ago, we released one called Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch, The Adventures of a Rebellious Girl. It's got a really cool retro 70s art kind of a cover on it, which really catches the eye. And it's been doing very well. And what's cool about this is Karlyle's already got another book out. Came out just in the past week or so. This one's called The Gulls Are Always Laughing. And since he's our guest tonight, we're going to talk about that a little bit with him tonight, but just wanted everybody to know that we've got a new book out from Fresh Ink Group this week. The Gulls Are Always Laughing, and it's by Karlyle Tomms.
Yeah, I got a couple of things here. First of all, we've talked about Kindle Vella on here quite a bit in the past through Amazon, and I did a couple of Story Empire posts about Kindle Vella. Well, apparently Amazon is doing away with the whole Vella platform. We tried it for one of our authors in the past, and they had a little bit of moderate success with it, and we were looking forward to maybe trying it with some other authors, but then Amazon got in there and started shaking things up, moving things around, and it didn't seem worth the time and the effort, and they're doing away with it. So bye-bye to Kindle Vella. And but here's a cool thing. Journey Through the Lens, A Creative Guide to Nature Photography by Angie Birmingham. That is out now. It is available, and it's doing quite well. You look in there, and she's got some amazing pictures, photographs, nature photographs, and she will explain to you how you can capture those same kind of photographs. Got a blurred background, or you catch an animal in mid-stride, and it's really cool looking. She'll teach you how to do that. It's kind of a how-to book. So
you mean those animals don't pose for that?
They don't stop and pose. That's what I always thought they did.
Man.
When I was a kid. All right. So if you want to be part of tonight's show, and we hope you do, because our time here on Blog Talk Radio is winding down at the end of January. They are ceasing operations, and we will be over on another platform. Stay tuned for that. Get our newsletter, and you'll find out all about that. But as of tonight, we got Dr. Helen. She calls in each week and listens to the show on hold. And welcome to the show, Dr. Helen. We're glad to have you here again. And if you want to call in, if you got a question or a comment for tonight's guest, here's how you can do that.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest. Or post a note on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter.
Hey, I was singing the praises of Karlyle Tomms, who's living in Texas these days. Another one of our Texas authors is Jan Sykes. And Jan Sykes did kind of the same thing Karlyle did. She put out a book that got us all excited, and it's starting to take off, and sales are looking good, and we're out there promoting stuff, and bam, here she come with another book. Wasn't that something, Beem? 2 in a row. We got A Beggar's Bargain. It's the first book in the Bargainers series, and now A Noble Bargain, book 2 in the Bargainers series by Jan Sykes. Those are both out now. She's working on number 3. She's coming up at us fast. So get your copies of book 1 and 2 so that you can catch up and be ready for book 3.
Yeah, she's got that that author fever where the plot lines are running thick, and get them down while you can. Also out now. Speaking of photography books, Trains of Alabama, short lines, rail yards, engines, heritage units for rail fan photos, and more, with an introduction by world wildlife photographer Angie Birmingham by Braden Dexter Green. That's out now. This is a cool book. It's I wrote a review on it, gave it a 5-star review because it's worth it. He's got some real cool photographs in there of some of these old school trains and trains that he tracks these things. He knows when they're coming through because they're rare ones, and he's snapping pictures of them, and he has a good time with us. So Trains of Alabama. Get out there and grab a copy by Braden Dexter Green.
Yeah, Braden Dexter Green's been busy, too. He put up a YouTube channel, and that one's starting to look pretty cool, eh, Beem?
Yeah, so get over there and check it out. YouTube, Braden Dexter Green, and subscribe while you're over there. And like the videos that are already up.
Yeah, on YouTube, it's Braden Dexter Green Photography. So follow.
But if they type in Braden Dexter Green, he'll pop up, too.
Yeah.
But, all right, get over there and follow, subscribe.
We've got another book just came out about the same week as Braden's book. This is Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service, a candid memoir by the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama. Now, in case you couldn't figure it out, she was the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, and that was a big deal down here. She served 3 terms and really helped transform that city, and now she's got the stories and the photos, and she's naming names, and she's having some fun with it. So check out Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service.
Yeah, she's telling you where she buried all those bodies at. So you want to know where they're at, do a treasure hunt. There you go. Also out now, Verwayne Greenhose, Dealing with Grief. That is out now. And Verwayne, he lost his first wife, so he had to deal with grief there. But he also worked as a emergency room guy, and he worked as an EMT, and he saw people grieving, and he was able to talk people down from, some of that grief or talk them through it. And so he just shares what he's learned over the years. And if you've got someone who's going through grief, this could be a book that could help them. Dealing with Grief by Verwayne Greenhole. It's out right now. So get over there and grab a copy.
All right. Robert G. Williscroft, The Star Child Saga number 4. I want to remind everybody that the Iapetus Federation, which is the 4th book in the Star Child Saga series, is now out. Now, that's the one that includes the Daedalus, the 4 novellas from the Daedalus series, the Daedalus Files, which forms book 3 of that, too. So check these out. This starts with the famous Williscroft book Slingshot, where he basically invented a way of launching ships into space that is now starting to look like, hey, somebody might be doing that one of these days soon. So check that out, 4 of the Star Child Saga by Robert G. Williscroft.
And speaking of Robert G. Williscroft, he's over here on Twitter with a comment announcement. He says, FYI, I'm entering the hospital tomorrow for a cervical fusion operation. So we are thinking about you, Robert, and we hope that all goes well for you. And also over here on Twitter or X is Verwayne Greenhow. He says, good evening, Fresh Ink Group fanatics. Lisa and I are huddled around the old Zenith radio. I spent an hour changing out the vacuum tube so that we can listen to author Karlyle Tomms talk with the Voice of Indie podcast hosts, Stephen and Beem. So, all right, thank you for that little plug, Mr. Greenhow. We appreciate that. Hello, Lisa.
Someday they'll work their way up to rabbit ears and a piece of aluminum foil.
And a piece of aluminum foil. Yeah. Okay, a little status update on audiobooks. I am currently going through chapter 15 and going smooth. Hopefully that, another week or so, maybe 2 weeks, and get some stuff coming up. So I kind of shuffle my time here. But I'm trying to get this done and ready to go. That maybe this will be ready by Christmas, and you can have your copy of the Keyed Civilization in Hiding, and you'll also get like a PDF companion with that. So keep your eyes and ears on the newsletter, and hopefully it's done, like I said, pretty soon. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been pretty easy. There's not any, what does the whirling dervish sound like? I got to find a whirling dervish sound.
Yeah, you sound kind of cocky now, but wait till you get a knock on the door and there's some alien standing there, some reptilian, saying you dissed my sister on that audiobook of yours. All right, so we've got a couple more books that have come out recently that are also performing really well. Janelle A. Jordan's The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership, A Guide to Leading Authentically. That one's been bouncing around in our top 5 print bestsellers now for about a month since it came out. So congratulations on that, Janelle.
Yeah, congratulations. Matt's Murder by Pat Guthrie. That'll be out soon. Did a little bit of the editing on that today. I'm hopefully going to have that done by the end of this week. I spoke with Pat Guthrie today on the phone. She's home from the hospital, and so she's eager to get this done and out. And I told her, I said I would try to have that done by the end of this week. And I'm going to focus on that particular one throughout the rest of this week. That and the audiobook. The audiobook, I got allotted times blocked out for that. So between those two, and then I can finish up the other one that I'm working on. There's full plate this time of the year. But Matt's Murder by Pat Guthrie, it's looking like it's going to be another fantastic novel by Patricia A. Guthrie. So keep your eyes and ears open for that one.
And now what are we publishing this week, Beem?
This week we are publishing, and hopefully it's going to be either tomorrow or Friday, The Chair Volume 5 by Robert McKenzie. That's coming up next. He's cleared the final proof on that. The covers are done. They're looking snazzy. And we're still throwing coal in the old hype machine, getting it fired up, and we're happy to have this thing going. And if you want to know what other books are coming out, what new videos we've got on the channel, all things Fresh Ink Group, all things Voice of Indie, all things indie publishing and indie authors and indie music, we've got a newsletter, and here's how you can subscribe to that.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter. New releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of FreshInkGroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
All right, it's official.
Yeah, so then that would make me an indie podcaster talking about indie authors and from Indiana today.
There you go. Now, if it's
right,
Indianapolis, Indiana, that would have been really cool.
Yeah, it would have been. There. All right, so let's look at the top 25 print bestsellers from the Fresh Ink Group. What's been happening? Journey Through the Lens, A Creative Guide to Nature Photography by Angie Birmingham. That's the hardcover edition. It's a big book, and it's full color inside, too. That comes in at number 25, and the hardcover edition of Nell Cooper's Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow, which is a very cool novel. It brings us to 23. I Won't Be Your Scapegoat, David Carroll's Homemade Social Media Blunders. It's a paperback edition. And that was just laugh out loud funny. And then above that, of course, we've got to have a food truck book, because there's always one in here, it seems. And this is A.K. Wingler's How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business in Florida, which I think is probably the best seller of all of her food truck books. We got J. Ash Looney. Who Said That? The stories behind familiar expressions for readers, writers, word lovers, and trivia buffs. Fresh Ink Group explains whence comes those phrases that color everyday speech. That's by J. Ash Looney. And then above that, we've got a country music Hall of Fame drummer named
Mark Herndon.
Mark Herndon. Yep, and his memoir, The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip, the hardcover edition is coming in just above those on the list. And by the way, go to markherndon.com and you can order a paperback edition of his book, and he will autograph it for you.
Even sign it and specifically to you or your friend or whoever it is.
Yeah. Ellie Collins, hardcover edition of her Daisy Bold and Beautiful. That's the first of her 3 Greek mythology novels aimed at teens. Now, we've got a book by Dr. Helen Burrell, The Hippocampus, the Interactive Brain Book, Fun Learning for Science Lovers. That was her first book before she wrote American Agony. And that one's aimed at kids. It's illustrated, and it's just very cool. And how can you go wrong, Beem, with a book full of hippos, right?
Exactly. Nothing more fun than a bunch of hungry hippos.
Paperback edition of The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip by Mark Herndon comes in just above that. And then Jan Sykes is coming in with A Beggar's Bargain, back-to-back, hardcover and paperback edition, both selling the exact same numbers of copies. Pretty cool when novels are selling just as many hardcovers as paperbacks.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the Iapetus Federation, Exodus from Earth, the Exodus from Earth, the Star Child Saga Book 4 by Robert G. Willis-Croft, the paperback edition, is coming in next on the list. And then above that, David Carroll again, Hello Chattanooga, famous people who have visited the Tennessee Valley. Man, it's a fun book, big book. You can use it for a doorstop in between reading and looking things up. It's even a long-term reference book, so you can look things up and win arguments and settle bets. Jan Sykes again, A Noble Bargain, the second of her Beggar's Bargain, or of our Bargainer series, which starts with A Beggar's Bargain and goes to number 2 at A Noble Bargain with number 3 on the way by Jan Sykes. Now, we've got some more Robert G. Willis-Croft here. The first of the Mac McDowell Mission series. This one's called Operation Ivy Bells, a Mac McDowell mission. That's the first of 5 so far in the Mac McDowell Mission series. Cold War submarine thrillers, Americans versus Russians. It's just a lot of fun underwater with your clothes on. So we've got Janelle A. Jordan's The Reality of Interpersonal Leadership, a guide to leading authentically in the hardcover edition. And then above that, Crimes and the People Who Commit Them. Fiction with Conviction by the guy who did the time. And who is that guy, Beam?
I'm drawing a blank. Philip, is it Phil? No.
Phil Lippert.
Phil Lippert.
Phil Lippert.
And I just posted that on the Fresh Ink Group TikTok channel, too. So we're on TikTok now. Go look for Fresh Ink Group and our fresh.ink.group.publishing. Because there's
and if your sister Dot's nearby,
people.
have her log in too. All right, so that's Crimes and the People Who Commit Them by Phil Lippert. And then above that, we've got Abigail Hugheni, There Must Be Something in the Water, Anthology, The Fourth Generation, Descendants of Green Pond After the Emancipation. She's been doing well with Mary L. Smalls, too, on their First Lady's book. Let's see if it makes the list. Ooh, look, here's Loretta Spencer, A Passion for Service, a candid memoir by the first woman mayor of Huntsville, Alabama. Hardcover, Beam. But look at that, there's the paperback. The paperback is right above it. And now we're working our way up to the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the top 5. So Loretta Spencer took slots number 6 and 7. And then at number 5, we've got somebody who's 14 years old, but he can only say that for another week and a half, and then he's got to say he's 15. Trains of Alabama, short lines, rail yards, engines, heritage units, rail fan photos, and more. Hardcover edition, which is pretty cool, by Braden Dexter Green. And that's just like at least 150 color pictures of trains from central Alabama, things passing through heritage units, all kinds of stuff. He knows his stuff. He knows which trains to chase, and then he gets really cool pictures of them. So Trains of Alabama is coming in at number 5. And then look at this, Beam, number 4, Mark Marlowe, Operation Counterpunch. His novel's really been making a comeback after being published 5 years ago, something like that.
Many years ago. That's kind of surprising, but that's good.
Yep. That's
another
3.
one that I posted the trailer for that up on the fresh.ink.group.publishing TikTok channel. So maybe that's stirring up some sales.
Maybe it is. We're starting to explore and look for some alternative ways to get out there these days. So anywhere you look, if you spot Fresh Ink Group, click like, save, share, whatever, and help support. All right, that brings us to number 3. Abigail Hugheni makes the list again, this time with Mary L. Smalls, Mr. President, I've Got Your Back, the First Ladies of South Carolina State University. That was a fun book. She's working on the one for Alabama A&M University next. We're looking forward to that. Top 2, people. Top 2. Number 2, paperback edition. Retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Jerry Pates, Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat. So, the submarine is rising again. Jerry, congratulations. You made number 2 this week with Submariner, and that leaves us at number 1, paperback edition. It's a novel, people. It's a long novel. It's a historical novel. It's a great novel by Nell Cooper. Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow. Congratulations, Nell. You made number 1 again.
There you go. All right. Fantastic. Now, speaking of these trailers, I've been busy kind of moving some of them over to the TikTok channel. I intended to do one a day until I had them all over there, but I get busy with a whole bunch of other stuff, so it's been like one a week. But I'll add some more. But we have new trailers. Mr. President, I've Got Your Back. That's an older video from when we first released the book, but I had two different versions of the audio. I had the audio commercial with a particular song for this podcast, and then the video version had a different song, and people seem to like the one on the audio commercial for the podcast better than the one that was on there. So I swapped out the music and popped that back in there, and it's a really cool piece of music. So that's up there now. Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch. That's up there on the YouTube, Fresh Ink Group YouTube channel as well. I Remember Judy is up there. And our number 1 book of the week for, I think, 2 weeks now in a row or 3 weeks, Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow. There's a cool video for that, so go over there and check that out. And stay tuned because probably right after the show tonight, I'm uplifting The Gulls Are Always Laughing. The brand new video for our tonight's guest, Karlyle Tomms' latest book. So keep an eye out for that. And, that's about it. But go over to YouTube, Fresh Ink Group. Over at YouTube, we got a whole bunch of book trailers and cool stuff. So.
Yeah, the trailers is something that we have that very few other publishers have, and that's something that very few other independent authors have. But our authors do. We make sure our authors have cool trailers, and we're really going to start expanding how and where we use those too. So you find cool ways to use trailers, let us know. We're always looking for open for ideas and getting out there and supporting each other too. Now, speaking of supporting of each other, we talked earlier about our number 5 bestseller right now, Trains of Alabama by Braden. Wanted to mention that he's a hardcore rail fan, and it turns out there's a whole lot of them out there. I've always been into trains and stuff, and I've known people who are seriously into trains, and, they like to see them or collect them or build model railroad sets or things like that. So Braden's got a blog now called Arriving on Track 1. And he's got about 2 followers, I think. So if you know anybody that goes out there and follows blogs who's a rail fan, tell them about that one. He's got a website now, BradenDexterGreen.com. We're still tweaking a detail or two, but he's going to be putting regular pictures and things up there on that. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier the YouTube channel, Braden Dexter Green Photography, and he's starting to put videos on there as well. So if you know any rail fans, help us spread the word and help them start to build a little bit of a follower, because it encourages young people to go out and take pictures of trains instead of, robbing banks and joining gangs.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so if you happen to miss an episode of this program, I had mentioned our YouTube channel. We got every episode that we've done it's over there. It's archived. Blog Talk Radio is going down at the end of January, so we may lose the archives on this one and a couple of others that are connected to that. But don't worry, we will figure out a way to expand our archives. So if you've got a favorite episode, here's how you can find it right now.
Find your favorite show in the Voice of Indie archives on YouTube at Fresh Ink Group, StephenG's.com, BeamWeeks.com, FreshInkGroup.com, and on Spotify. And now you can listen on iHeartRadio and tune in. Just search The Voice of Indie, all one word.
All right, so we are going to introduce tonight's guest. I do see we've got a caller already calling in, so hold tight, caller, and we will get to you. Tonight's guest, Karlyle Tomms, is an award-winning author who grew up in the rural Ozarks, where my grandparents grew up. He began writing fiction later in life and has written for different regional magazines and newspapers over the years. He has often been selected to speak at both professional and non-professional events, as well as radio talk shows. His first novel, Confessions from the Pumpkin Patch, won a 2016 New Apple Awards medal for general fiction and was endorsed by Meredith Sisko, who is known for her work with the Oscar-nominated and Sundance Grand Jury Prize-winning film Winter's Bone. Love the book, love the movie, starring Jennifer Lawrence. His general method for fiction has been to define a protagonist and allow that character to tell protagonist in writing an autobiography. His fictional books are about people overcoming social, psychological, emotional, political, and spiritual challenges. Welcome back to the show, Karlyle Tomms. It's always good to have you here.
Hey, Karlyle.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Good to be back.
All right, so we know you're from the Ozarks and you're living in Texas now. Give us any kind of update. What's the weather like down there right now where you're at? Because we're talking cold up here.
Currently it's 69 degrees at 7:25 p.m.
So the Gulf is smirking.
Yeah. And it was cooler than usual. We had a high of 71 today.
A high of 71. We had a high of, I think, 32.
That beats Michigan or Indiana any day of the week.
Yeah. So how long have you been down there now, Karlyle?
10 years.
10 years.
10 years. Been quite a while.
But you haven't picked up the Texas accent yet.
I guess not.
It's not an accent. It's a drawl.
Yeah.
It's a Texas drawl, y'all.
Drawl. Makes you sound like Tommy Lee Jones.
I have a friend of mine who's from Texas who says tam instead of time. So I jokingly say at 5 or 6 o'clock, it's tam for Wan.
Tam for Wan.
Oh, geez. Now, you were, did you retire before you moved down there, or were you working when you went down there and then retired?
No, I retired in January 2023. I was still working when I was doing the first couple of novels and kind of biding my time until I could actually quit my day job and devote myself to my writing. So I've been pumping it out a little bit more since I retired.
Okay, and you retired from what?
I had a 42-year career as a clinical social worker.
Cool. So you saw it all and learned about it all.
I learned about quite a bit, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, and it certainly confused a lot of your books, like Edge of Smoke, for example. But right now, we apparently have a caller holding, so we're going to play a couple of commercials and come back and see what's happening on the telephone. We're talking to Karlyle Tomms, and if you would want to also join that caller, 516-453-9902.
All right.
A grand epic saga by Robert Mackenzie, the Chair series spans centuries, touching the lives of 22 generations of related mothers and daughters, their stories witnessed by a simple pine chair. Resolute, strong, loving, and fiercely protective, these women must strive to pass their values to new generations in a world of racism and sexism, politics, scandal, fashion, and even the rise and dominance of baseball. They live in privilege and poverty, with faith and despair, relishing every moment of love, even as they suffer abiding grief. Volume 1, Lightning, Thunder, and Glory, spans the 1600s through World War I, while Volume 2, Faith, Hope, and Love, follows these women's descendants into modern times and beyond. In Volume 3, 7, 8, and 9, the Chair flashes back to pre-Civil War America, featuring a woman from the Second Mayflower, her daughter the black market Irish lace importer, and a Canadian World War I fighter pilot. Volume 4, Punt, Pass, and Kick, jumps forward with a gunboat battle, one courageous cattle drive, a suffragette in the ocean liner industry, a mysterious unpublished manuscript, and more.
A blend of history and philosophy told through satire and parody, the story of the chair could be found in some old trunk in any dusty old attic. But Mackenzie breathes it alive with riveting tales that span the real and the imagined. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, the Chair series by Robert Mackenzie is available worldwide in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions.
Teenager Braden Dexter Green has traveled North Alabama, collecting photos of his favorite trains and railroad settings. From the peculiar freight engines of Amtrak, to the beautiful heritage units of Norfolk Southern, to the new rebuilds of CSX locomotives, Braden chronicles both the commonplace and unusual trains crisscrossing the state, carrying passengers and freight in Trains of Alabama. He takes a close look at some notable short lines, such as the Alabama and Tennessee River Railroad out of Gadsden and the Huntsville and Madison County Railroad Authority, which locks down its engines in the downtown area of Huntsville. Backgrounds include Birmingham's famous Sloss furnaces and several notable rail yards, including the CSX Boyles Yard in Tarrant, the Norfolk Southern Norris Yard in Irondale, and the BNSF East Thomas Yard in Birmingham. Featuring an introduction by renowned wildlife photographer and author of Journey Through the Lens, Angie Birmingham, Trains of Alabama is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group worldwide in a case laminate hardcover edition with premium color printing, a glossy softcover edition with standard color, and all ebook editions. Order copies for yourself and fans of railroad photography. It's the images that are the stars here. Those mighty trains that move the world, even as they inspire the passions of one teen who shares his favorites in Trains of Alabama.
All right, yeah, like we said, that is out now, and maybe we'll get like the hobos of Alabama, where he's following the trains, but you got the guys with the stick with a bandana with all their stuff in it. Cans of pork and beans and campfires. Just kidding. All right. Yeah. We had a caller lined up, and the caller dropped during the ad, so we'll wait till the caller calls back. But in the meantime,
you know what happens there? They run out to buy the book that they just heard the ad, and forget that they were on the phone. It happens all the time.
Or they're ordering it from their phone and they hit the wrong button and just
Yeah.
All right, so how about we talk about Karlyle's newest book, The Gulls Are Always Laughing. This is a book of poetry, so tell us a little bit about this. Where did these poems come from?
Poetry
Karlyle?
And prose.
Poetry and prose.
Yeah, it's not entirely a book of poetry. It's, I would describe it as an autobiographical self-help poetry book of spirituality. It's
no recipes.
Yeah, no recipes. The poems I've collected for years and years and years, and there's a whole section in there where I went back from around the age of 13 to 14 up through 25 or 26 years old, and I included poems that I wrote during that period of my life when I was first beginning to develop a self-love for myself after the way that I grew up. And, it's, a gay man's journey to healing and spirituality. I had a lot of healing to do of abuse at home, and because of growing up gay in the 1960s in rural Arkansas and in an authoritarian church where I was indoctrinated to believe that who I am is an abomination. And it took a great deal for me to overcome that.
So very therapeutic in what you're writing here.
I think so, yes. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm encouraging not just gay people, but hopefully gay youth to understand that you deserve to be loved no matter who you are. But maybe people who are trauma survivors and people who aren't gay, who can glean from this that it is possible to overcome. It is possible to take those wounds from your childhood and turn that around into a happy and productive life.
So how are you doing that then? Are you talking directly to the readers, or are you just telling them stories, setting examples, or encouragement, or I mean, what form is this taking? What do these poems look like, and what is the prose?
I do an introduction that's basically a summary of my childhood, my experience in the Ozarks up through when I went to college and first began to meet mentors who turned me around. I was told when I was 18 that I was going to go to hell because I accepted a scholarship to a Presbyterian college.
Okay.
And going to that Presbyterian college was the best thing that ever happened to me, because to begin thinking for myself instead of just swallowing what I was told to believe and believing it because I was told to believe it. And so I began to have these people there who took my anger and my frustration and my self-hatred and flipped it around, and they saw the soul beneath the anger, and began to teach me that I am lovable and I deserve to be loved. And I began that whole process of sort of coming out of myself when I went to college. So it's a long process coming to that. I just did a video yesterday about one of the poems in the book called Invisible, and how gay people are expected to be invisible. As one friend of mine said, society drives gay people into the shadows and then punishes them for being there. And so you had to keep your mouth shut. When I was a kid, about 16 years old, the minister of our church said in a sermon, the sin of homosexuality is worse than the sin of murder. And what do you think that does to a 16-year-old's mind when he fits the bill? If I'm worse than a murderer, maybe I should kill myself. If I'm worse than a murderer, if I don't kill myself, I better keep my mouth shut, because nobody can possibly know this, because if they know, what will they do? And it took going to Lion College for me to begin to realize that there were theologians and ministers who had a great deal of knowledge who did not see the Bible that way.
So then the first part of the book reads like a memoir. Basically, you tell this story, what the background is, and what led you toward where you are today.
Yeah, and then each poem has an introduction. So the introduction of each poem is about what the poem is basically about. It's an explanation as to what the poem was about and to what was going on in my life at the time that the poem was written. And it's called The Gulls Are Always Laughing because I had learned a lot about keeping myself happy, and I'd learned a lot about spirituality. And then when I moved to Texas, which I really wanted to do because I wanted to get down here and get warm, but it was probably the hardest move I ever went through. And I didn't know anybody here. I was taking a new job. I ended up being lied to online about the apartment that was a trash heap, worse than the 4-room house I grew up in as a child. And I had to really, really get myself back in order. And one of the ways that I did that is every day after work, when the weather was good, I would just walk across the street. There was a marina down the street, and there was a park and a beach across the street. And I would just walk over there with my camera and take pictures of the gulls. And it occurred to me that the gulls sound like they're laughing. That they don't take life seriously. Why are you taking this so seriously? You're having not burning down. Nobody's shooting at you. You got food in your belly, clothes on your back, a roof over your head. You're pissed off. That's all. And the gulls reminded me to bring myself back to center, to this moment, to gratitude, and to learn to just kind of like, okay, this will pass. Laugh it off. Move on.
Mm.
Yeah.
They weren't laughing with you. They were laughing at you.
They were laughing at you.
They were. I don't care if they were laughing with me or laughing at me.
Yeah.
What it did is it brought me back to myself. It brought me back to my teachings that I had, because I had such a rough mood, I had kind of forgotten my spirituality. I had forgotten my therapy and my training, and so the goals kind of began to remind me to get back to that. And of course, one of the things I've done my whole life when I've gone through things is I've written poetry. And so I would go back to the apartment after walking around on the beach and looking for sea glass and listening to the gulls. I'd go back to my apartment and I would write poetry. So that all kind of came around to, here's an idea for a book for people to witness that struggle and to witness me being vulnerable and opening myself and baring my heart so that they can see it is possible to step beyond the anguish that we think we're stuck with.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to stop here, and we're going to take a commercial break. Listeners, come on, call in, 516-453-9902, 516-453-9902. Now, after the ad, Karlyle, if you're up for it, how about reading a poem? And this will give you a chance to go grab the book if it's not handy.
It's not handy. I will have to go grab it.
All right. Well, you got two ads to go track down a copy. We will be right back. Again, 516-453-9902. Give us a call. You got a question, comment? We'd love to hear from you. Okay, this is not playing. Let's try this one. All right, we're having a problem here with these ads not wanting to play now. So I don't know what's going on.
Not even the goal?
Nothing is playing right now. It's spinning, and it opened up, and there we go. It's doing this weird thing.
In 1948, 8-year-old Kay is at Oakdale, the Lapeer State Home in Michigan, where people of all ages with physical and mental aberrations come to live. Kay wonders why she is here and if she will ever leave. She cares for an infant who will not let anyone else feed her, and she has friends, especially a boy her age she calls Toe. When Kay and Toe grow close as teens, she discovers the home has scheduled surgery that will change her life. With the clothes she's wearing and the file containing her life story, Kay flees late one dark night. Toe tries to chase after her, but a fateful accident robs him of the chance to seek the love of his life. Will Kay ever experience the kind of family she has longed for? Published in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions by Fresh Ink Group, Nell Cooper's Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow is a historically accurate coming-of-age story about identity, belonging, and learning to choose one's own destiny. Read Nell Cooper's Nowhere to Go But Tomorrow.
The Gulls Are Always Laughing by Karlyle Tomms is poetry about transition from trauma and turmoil through relationships to spirituality and the ability to laugh at one's troubles. We have all fought through anguish, hopefully to become better citizens. The poetry covers Karlyle's formative years, growing up with abuse on a farm in the Ozarks, his adult relationships, and his transition to life on the shores of the coastal bend of Texas. He bears his heart and soul on these pages, but he hopes to bear witness to there being a better way, and it is always possible to overcome and rise above. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, The Gulls Are Always Laughing is available in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats at your favorite retailers worldwide. The Gulls Are Always Laughing by Karlyle Tomms.
All right. Mr. Tomms is going to read a poem from that. Again, callers, 516-453-9902. We'd love to hear from you. I don't know what happened with the commercials there. I clicked on two of them, and then they opened up into this weird thing I've never seen them do before. They expanded and just kept spinning. So I don't know what's going on with that.
The portal.
Yeah, it opened the portal. That opened the old the hellhole, and now the demons are coming through the software here. The gremlins. All right, so Karlyle, do you have your copy of The Gulls Are Always Laughing handy?
Yeah,
okay.
I have a poem that was about when I was a little boy. First of all, let me preface this with the fact that I didn't meet my biological father until I was 18 years old. When I met him, he was the first man who ever hugged me. And this poem is called His Hand, and it's about one of our neighbors who attended our church. So His Hand. Standing outside after services at our little stone country church, my 12-year-old timidity was evident around adults. There we stood, chatting, before the long walk home, or rather, I was listening, to be seen, but not to be heard. His hand slipped round my shoulder, unexpected, yet welcome still. His hand slipped round my shoulder and gave a comforting thrill. Seldom touched by men or touched only in anger, I was shocked by what he did. This family friend and neighbor touched me as no man ever had. My heart began pounding in the center of my chest. I felt a nervous ambivalence between pull away or let it rest. His hand lingered there for way too long, and my frightened heart did slam. Yet I so wanted him to touch me more, as no man ever had. His hand slipped round my shoulder, a drop of water to a thirsting soul. For a moment there it lingered before it was time to go. With laughter and exclamation, the congregation dispersed for home. His hand slipped into oblivion, or it might as well have been so. I felt the tingling presence where his hand once had been. I lingered in the memory and was grateful for what he did. If never again it might happen, I would remember that touch and be glad. His hand slipped round my shoulder and touched me as no man ever had.
Do the readers at this point know that that's your real father, your biological father?
No, that wasn't my biological father. That was when I was 12 years old. That was a neighbor at church.
That's right. You were 18 when you finally met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, very autobiographical.
Yeah. There's a poem in there about my dad. It's called Tough because he was a prisoner of war in Japan in World War II. And, there are poems in there about just about everybody. And most of them are about me and about my struggle. There's one called Get Away, which is about my cousin who was lesbian, and she committed suicide after she came home in 1981. She came home with her partner, and her family wouldn't accept it, and she ended up killing herself. So there's a poem called Get Away about her suicide.
You want to read that one? Karlyle?
Sure. Get away. When you were a little girl, learning all about the world, you were playing with little boys, not paper dolls or sissy things, none of those so-called normal things. They told you early on that you were different from the others in the world. Growing up was such a chore, and Mama's wishes such a bore. All demands they forced on you made you forget your humanity. You spent your life trying to flee from monsters placed into your mind, but you could never leave those fears behind. Did you ever really get away? Sometimes crap ran through your head, making you wish you were dead. Seemed like everywhere you turned, another lesson for you to learn. Crazy makers manufacturing a vice grip mind that made you want to scream. Little girls don't play with boys. Big girls ought to tease the boys. Keep away, don't get too close. What's the matter, girl? Don't you like boys? Crazy makers manufacturing a vice grip mind that made you want to scream. Did you ever really get away? The first chance you could get, you moved away to another state where you thought you could be yourself, but wherever you went, you carried the hell. Trapped in yourself, wanting out. One day when you thought you'd had enough, you took a gun and blew it all away, away, away. Did you ever really get away?
Wow.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, very much.
Now, you writing poetry, and you say you've been writing this for quite a while. Did you take any kind of classes, or is this just stuff that comes from within?
It's stuff that comes from within. My first poetry started when I was probably 12 or 13 years old.
Because I've tried my hand at poetry, and it doesn't work. I love writing, novels and short stories, but the poetry, it's a difficult thing to write.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's not difficult for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's difficult for me, but there's people like what you've just read. I mean, you've got it down. So, I mean, bravo.
Okay, well, we're talking to Karlyle Tomms here. One last chance if people want to call in, 516-453-9902. Now, Karlyle, we've got 3 other books by you that we've put out at Fresh Ink Group, so we've got a trailer for each of those. So what we're going to do in our last minutes here is we're going to play a trailer for Calling Dream and take a minute or two and talk about that, and then do each of the other 2 books as well. And by then, we'll be pretty much running out of time. So let's cover these other 3 books and see if we can get some people interested in all of the Karlyle Tomms books. So,
yeah.
Beem, you want to start with The Calling Dream?
I sure will.
In 1945, 10-year-old Ronald Dennison, the son of a backwoods Arkansas preacher, began having profound dreams about religion and a strange red-haired woman. The dreams follow him for decades, with the woman sometimes seducing him, other times calling him to become a televangelist, but eventually berating him for his sins of lust. She holds a secret so dark that he dares never admit it, even to himself. The more famous and wealthier he becomes, the more he struggles with his adultery, his fetish, and his shame, until his torment can no longer be contained. Staggering revelations challenge everything he ever believed. Will truth bring him the peace he always craved? Or will the woman's demands prove more than he can bear? Read the novel The Calling Dream by Karlyle Tomms. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group in hardcover, softcover, and all e-book formats. The Calling Dream by Karlyle Tomms.
All right. So tell us a little bit about The Calling Dream.
That book is a fictional book, and I used the farm that I grew up on as my visual material when I was writing the background for the characters in that book, the initial background. Pastor Dennison grows up in the backwoods, the son of a backwoods preacher, and he ends up becoming a famous televangelist, but he has a problem. And his problem is that he's a sex addict, and he feels like he can't control himself. And these dreams that start when he's a little boy regarding a redheaded woman who does several things. She seduces him, she calls him to preach, but eventually she becomes his nightmare, and she contains the secret that he really doesn't want to know. His subconscious mind keeps trying to tell him what he needs to admit and what he needs to look at. And he refuses to do so until he reaches a breaking point.
Wow. It's a very psychological, intense suspense.
Yeah.
The only one of my books that's not super intense, I think, is Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch. The others have become more intense than that. Sunrise, there's plenty of drama in that, and there's plenty of psychological.
We'll get to that when we play the commercial here coming up.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, every time I want to know more about Sunrise, I go over to the YouTube channel called Fresh Ink Group, where I am a subscriber, and I watched that Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch trailer, which is pretty cool, and I think we could probably play it right now.
Yeah, okay.
It's 1967, and promiscuous small-town girl Lavella can't wait to get away from her controlling mother to make her own life. She hooks up with Earl, an ugly hippie, rebelling against his rich father. At a time of severe racial tensions and the burgeoning civil rights movement, Earl whisks her off to San Francisco to experience the summer of love. Acid trips, a gay love affair, and deep betrayal eventually lead to Lavella's pregnancy, with a biracial child that Earl will accept, but which Earl's father won't. Lavella quickly discovers there is more to her mother's control than she ever could have imagined. Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch is a rich family saga by Karlyle Tomms, author of The Calling Dream and Edge of Smoke. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch is available worldwide in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats.
Now, Karlyle, this is Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch. How does this differ from the original Confessions from the Pumpkin Patch?
It's essentially the same story, except that I've shortened it a bit, and it's already a very long book, even though it was shortened. I took quite a bit out of it that probably wasn't necessary. And but it's essentially the same story. I've done a lot of work to kind of clean it up a little bit and maybe put in some of the things I've learned about writing in the last 10 years.
Tell us about it, John.
Novels.
Tell us about it. You've learned something about writing in the last couple of years? Do tell. I'm writing it down here.
I'm always learning more about writing.
Yeah, aren't we all?
I'm working on screenwriting, and I have converted Edge of Smoke into a full-length screenplay.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Well, now, see, Edge of Smoke, that's the one that to me is your most intense. It invites comparisons like to the story and movie Moonlight or some others with that, where you really get into the head of the character and living in that world and stuff. So, let's go ahead and play that trailer and tell us about Edge of Smoke.
In the Pruitt-Igoe slums of St. Louis in the 1960s, a heroin addict mother breaks her son's dolls and screams, "You are not a girl." However, no one can convince Stephanie to live as Stephen. Her mother pimps her out to a man who rapes and takes pictures of her. After finding her mother brutally murdered, she is placed in Christian foster care, where they also try to convince her to accept being male. Her mother's lover is sentenced to life in prison for the murder. Author of widely praised The Calling Dream, Karlyle Tomms brings back famed televangelist Pastor Ronald Dennison in this unflinching sequel, Edge of Smoke. Dennison sets up a trust that allows a compassionate old neighbor to adopt Stephanie out of foster care. Still, she is violently bullied at school for identifying as female. The trust pays for transition surgery at 18, and she begins to live fully as a woman. Frightened by men, she remains a virgin until she falls in love with Jordan, but she runs into the man who abused her and remembers her childhood pledge to kill him. Will her lust for murdering the man who brutalized her as a child cause her to lose the man she loves? Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, The The Calling Dream, and now Edge of Smoke can be found anywhere and shipped everywhere in jacketed hardcover and softcover editions, or downloaded in all ebook formats. Edge of Smoke by Karlyle Tomms.
All right. Give us the 411 on that one.
Well, and that Gary's certainly right about that. That is the most intense of all the books. And, when you're dealing with walking in at 10 years old and finding your mother stabbed to death, that's a pretty intense situation, plus dealing with abuse, plus dealing with being transgender, and all the fear and heartache that goes with that, and the terror that goes, especially in the 1980s, because Stephanie matured into her adulthood in the 1980s, and that's around the time the AIDS crisis hit. So she finally, she's just living her life. She's working as a bartender and just living her life and not doing much else than hanging out with her friends. But she gets introduced to Jordan, and Jordan becomes enamored of her, and he pursues her, and she resists for a very long time, but finally gives in and finally begins to have a relationship with him. But then when she runs into Jake, who's the man who abused her as a child, she remembers that pledge that if she ever saw him again, she would kill him. And then she risks everything, including losing Jordan, for a chance to kill Jake.
Wow. And that one's called Edge of Smoke. And like I say, and Karlyle Tomms admits that one's very intense. It's got some very striking scenes in it as well. We've been talking to Karlyle Tomms, and we've been having a hoot, haven't we, Beem?
Oh, yeah. Now, one more thing about Edge of Smoke. That's got some carryover, at least a carryover character, correct, from The Calling Dream?
Yeah, all novels do. Pastor Dennison shows up in Sunrise Over the Pumpkin Patch, and he shows up in Edge of Smoke. And each novel, then there's a character in Edge of Smoke by the name of Sherry, and she will be the protagonist of the next novel. That
was my next question. What's next? So it's a novel next. The Gulls is your one shot at memoir and poetry for a little while now, and then we're going back to novels.
Yeah. I will be continuing. I'm going to do this the rest of my life as long as my fingers will type.
Okay.
So I've got several novels in my head. I've got ideas for screenplays in my head, and I have this passion to write. So that's what I'm doing.
And there are so many animals out there that we could anthropomorphize too. It could be the raccoons are always snickering. There's no telling. We could have all kinds of fun with it. But yeah, Karlyle Tomms, it's nice to see that you have a little bit of fun with them. The introspection is wonderful. And like I say, the stories, sometimes they get real intense, but that's what it takes sometimes to make a point and actually show what things are really like for some people out there. So it's Karlyle Tomms, and one of our favorite writers. We got 4 books out by him so far, and we're looking for more. And we appreciate all the participation out there on Twitter tonight. So, Beem, what's going on in the future here?
Speaking of Twitter, before we do, I wanted to throw this out. This is Verwayne Greenhow. This was from a little while ago. He tweeted, "Everybody deserves to be loved, regardless of what is happening in their lives or how they live their lives. Judge not, lest ye be judged." So throw that out there. And coming up in the future, next week, we've got Robert McKenzie. The Chair Volume 5 should be out either tomorrow or Friday, and he's going to come in and talk about this. And he's always a blast to have on. He's a lot of fun, so you're going to want to tune in for that.
Yeah, and then we're going to have some kind of a show right before Christmas. Christmas Day is on a Wednesday this year, right, Beem?
Yes, it is. As
so the
is
week,
New
the week
Year's,
before,
so.
we're going to do the Christmas show, and then we're going to do reruns over the holidays. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, did we figure out what we're going to do for that Christmas show? We're going to just talk about our books, our authors, have some fun, play some trailers, maybe give away some prizes, and have Santa stop by the studio.
Yeah, have a little eggnog, throw a Yule log on the fire, and sing Kumbaya or something.
Yeah, there you go. And then, of course, after the new year, we'll be migrating to a new podcast platform. We hope everybody follows us and helps us spread the word. So, again, Karlyle Tomms, thanks for stopping by to visit today.
Thank you.
We do appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see everybody next time.
Have a good weekend, everybody, and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Loretta Spencer grew up passionate for helping others. Her volunteer work in support of local causes grew into a deep devotion to the city of Huntsville, Alabama, and her people. She went on to serve 3 terms as the city's first woman mayor. In this candid memoir, Loretta recounts her early rise in politics, the campaigns, the deals, and the accomplishments that helped lead Huntsville to grow into Alabama's biggest city today. Loretta shares original photos, clippings, letters, notes from notables, and much more as she tells her personal stories and chronicles this important era of women's and Alabama's history.
Hey writers, got a short story looking for a prestigious anthology that will showcase your work alongside other top authors? Or maybe you've experienced a moment worth sharing, perhaps with some poignant meaning we could all appreciate. Fresh Ink Group is accepting submissions for our 2nd and 3rd volumes of the Fresh Ink Group Short Story Showcase to be released in hardcover, softcover, and all major ebook formats worldwide. There are no fees to enter. Winners are not only published, but are invited to become members with their own dashboard in the FreshInkGroup.com website. Head over to FreshInkGroup.com's Contests tab to learn more. Then grease up the old Underwood and get those shorts down so you can get your entries in sooner than later. And you readers, discover 49 wondrous tales already released in the Fresh Ink Group Short Story Showcase #1, available now in all formats worldwide.
You're listening to The Voice of Indy.
You've been a part of Voice of Indy, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at FreshInkGroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.